إن بعد العسر يسرا ربنا أعلاك قدرا يا إمام الأنبياء.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. إنه من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل وسلم وزد وبارك على حبيبنا وقائدنا وقدوتنا ومعلمنا ونبينا محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. صلوا على رسول الله. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد. صلوا على رسول الله. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد. Inshallah, we're going to continue with the Seerah program where we left off yesterday, and it's the Battle of Badir. We barely got into it, and we didn't get a chance to really go inside the battle itself. So that's what we'll be doing today, inshallah. Before we finish, I just want to give a short summary or lead up to the process of where we're at right now. We talked about that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ came to Medina. He established the masjid. He built a brotherhood between the Muhajirin and the Ansar. He put together a constitution for the people of Medina. And then we said that the battle between Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and Quraysh never really stopped or never really finished, right? The Prophet ﷺ, yes, he went to Medina. However, there was still always tension between the Muslims in Medina and Quraysh in Mecca. And Quraysh in Mecca was very fearful of the spread of Islam. Why? Because they knew that the spread of Islam would affect them and affect their business at the end of the day, Quraysh's business. So they continued their best to try to prevent Prophet Muhammad ﷺ from sending the message out to the rest of the tribes. And we mentioned that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and all the Muhajirin, they left Medina and they left everything behind. They left everything behind in Mecca. They left to Medina and left everything behind in Mecca. Their wealth, all their belongings, everything they owned. And we talked that Quraysh seized all the property of all the Muslims and all their wealth that they left back in Mecca, and they invested it in a big caravan, a big business caravan that was going for a business trip to Damascus, in current day Syria. And we know when the Prophet ﷺ, when he heard about this caravan, he seized the opportunity to intercept the caravan and take the goods that are part of the caravan, because the majority of the goods are from the wealth from the Muslims. We said Suhaib bin Sinan left all his wealth, and he was a very, very rich man in Mecca. A lot of the Sahabas left Mecca, you could say, completely broke or almost broke, or with minimal belongings they took with them. We even know that in Medina there was an area that's called Ahlul Suffa, which is basically a group of people in Medina. When the Prophet ﷺ established the masjid in Medina, a group of people lived in the masjid. That was where they lived. And this group of people were the poor ones, the poor Sahaba, and a good chunk of them, or a good part of them, was from the Muhajirin that came from Mecca, because they came with nothing. So what the Prophet ﷺ did is he established for them, you could say, a corner in the Masjid Nabawi, the Prophet's mosque. He established a corner for them, in the corner for them to sleep in, and that's where they lived. And then the Sahaba would donate food to them for them to eat, and that's how they lived. And out of this group of people, we know who knows one of the most famous Sahabis that came out of the Ahl Suffa, the Sahabi Abu Hurairah. Abu Hurairah is the companion who narrated the most amount of hadith from Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. He was amongst them. He was one of those Sahabis that was very poor, that lived in the masjid at that time. So the Islamic state at that time, Medina, in financial, it wasn't yet stable. It wasn't a strong, stable state at that time. Yes, the Prophet ﷺ is building the state, but it wasn't a strong, stable state yet. So the Prophet ﷺ seized the opportunity to go intercept this caravan from Quraysh, to take all the goods from Quraysh back. So the Prophet ﷺ, as I mentioned yesterday, and there's actually two narrations, I should say them. And one narration says that the Prophet ﷺ, when he stood up and he asked the Muslims to take the shura, there's a caravan coming from going back to Mecca, it has our belongings. What do you say about us going out and intercepting it? And we know, I said yesterday that Abu Bakr said right away, yes, O Prophet of Allah. Umar said yes. A few of the Muhajirin said yes. And the Prophet ﷺ kept repeating the question over and over again until Sa'd bin Mu'adh, when Sa'd bin Mu'adh, one of the Ansar, one of the leaders of the Ansar, stood up and he said, O Prophet Muhammad, it seems like you're addressing the question to us, the people of Al-Ansar. Why? Because again, we said that the Prophet ﷺ, the pact or the pledge he had with the Ansar was what? Was to defend the Prophet in Medina. That if anybody would come and attack him or try to harm him in Medina, the Ansar would protect him. But the deal didn't have anything to do with going outside of Medina and fighting. So the Prophet ﷺ wanted to hear from them. He didn't want to impose this on them. And because the battle that the Ansar are going to be fighting right now is ultimately, I mean, if you want to look at it from that perspective, from a certain perspective, it's ultimately for the Muhajirin. The Muhajirin are going to fight the people of Quraysh who kicked them out, who stole their money. So it's as if the Ansar really have nothing to do with this. Now this story, some of the narrations say it took place before the Prophet ﷺ left to Medina initially. Other narrations say it took place once the Prophet ﷺ already left to Medina, and when they couldn't get to the caravan anymore, and then they were about to take the battle of Badir. So the Prophet ﷺ asked them about this, whether they want to join the battle of Badir or not. And I'll explain in a little bit. So what happened is the Prophet ﷺ asks the Ansar, do you want to go, what do you say? Sa'd bin Mu'adh, I mentioned it yesterday. In other narrations it says Sa'd bin Ubadah. Sa'd bin Mu'adh was the leader of Al-Aws. Sa'd bin Ubadah was the leader of Al-Khazraj, the two leading tribes of the Ansar. So Prophet ﷺ asked them, and then Sa'd bin Mu'adh stood up and said, it seems like you're referring to us, O Prophet of Allah. And the Prophet ﷺ said, indeed, I'm referring to you, the people of Al-Ansar. I want to hear from you. What do you say? So Sa'd bin Mu'adh's reply, and that's where we stopped off yesterday, and then went on a tangent and gave the story. But Sa'd bin Mu'adh replied to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ saying, O Prophet of Allah, we believed in you, we followed you. O Prophet of Allah, if you were to go across the sea, if you were to go in the middle of the sea, if you were to cross the sea, we would cross it, closing our eyes behind you, not thinking twice about it. If you were willing to go up any valley or any mountain, we would follow you without saying anything at all. O Prophet of Allah, we will be at peace with whomever you're at peace with, and we will be at war with whomever you go to war with. And then he told him, O Prophet of Allah, take from our money whatever you wish, and leave for us whatever you wish. And indeed, by Allah, the money you take from us is more beloved to us than the money you leave for us. And then he finished by saying, O Prophet of Allah, inshallah you will not see anything from us except that pleases you. I stopped at this statement, and I want to stop at it again for you to really think about it. Wallahi, think about these words. If you think about these words, subhanallah, wallahi, they're words that won't come out except a man, a true man, which Sa'd bin Mu'adh radiallahu anhu was. Sa'd bin Mu'adh, again, I want to repeat it, and I want you to really think about what he's saying. Here he is, the Prophet ﷺ now, and remember, the number of the Muhajirin, by the way, that were involved in the battle of Badir, who knows what the number was? The total number of Muslims was, there's three different narrations, 313, 314, or 317. 313, 314, or 317. So you could say they were in the around 300 Muslims total. How many Muhajirin, the ones that came from Mecca, participated in this battle? Approximately 83. 83 Muhajirin. So that means what? That means over 2/3 of the army is what? Is from the Ansar. 2/3 of the army of Badr is from the Ansar. Only 83 are from the Muhajirin. So that's why the Prophet ﷺ wanted to ask the Ansar. And now here he's asking for the Ansar. One of their leaders gets up, Sa'd bin Mu'adh. And Sa'd bin Mu'adh is the one, radiallahu anhu, who I mentioned when he passed away, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's throne shaked. It shook from the death of Sa'd bin Mu'adh. And as Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, 70,000 angels came down from the sky to pray janazah on Sa'd bin Mu'adh. Imagine, these days people pass away, they don't have 1,000 human beings praying on them. Imagine 70,000 angels came all the way from the sky, from the heavens, with one purpose. That's it, to pray janazah on Sa'd bin Mu'adh. And look at the answer he gave the Prophet. Again, think about what he's saying to the Prophet. He's saying, O Prophet of Allah, we believed you and we followed you. If you were to go through the sea, we would follow you. If you were to go up any mountain or down any valley, we would be right behind you. O Prophet of Allah, we are at peace with whomever you're at peace with, and we are at war with whomever you go to war with. O Prophet of Allah, take from our money whatever you want and leave to us whatever you want. O Prophet of Allah, wallahi, the money that you take from us is more beloved to us than the money that you keep for us. And O Prophet of Allah, you will not see anything from us except that pleases you. Imagine, do you think Sa'd bin Mu'adh, when he said these words, he said them as lip service? No. Wallah, he meant every single letter. Not every single letter he meant it. When he said, O Prophet of Allah, the money you take from us is more beloved to us than the money that you keep for us. Why? Because he knows the money that they're giving to the Prophet, they're all going to find it in the Day of Judgment. Khalas, Sa'd bin Mu'adh believes in Jannah. Again, the theme that I mentioned yesterday is Jannah. Sa'd bin Mu'adh understood. He understood, you could say, the equation of this life. He understood it clearly. That you live, whatever good you do, you'll find in Jannah. And then you die, and then you'll go to the hereafter. That's a simple equation that Sa'd bin Mu'adh understood. That everything I do on this earth is temporary. I'm either building myself for Jannah, or I'm destroying my hereafter. That's why in a story one time after the Sahaba and after the Tabi'een, at the time of the Tabi'een, one of the Muslims came to one of the Tabi'een that lived amongst the Sahaba. And he asked him, he said, I have a question. He said, how come that your generation of Tabi'een, the first generation of Tabi'een and the generation of Sahaba didn't fear death, while we fear death, we don't want to die? And then this Tabi'i replied to him a very beautiful answer. He said, because the Sahaba, they built their hereafter while they're on this earth. So they were anticipating, they didn't mind leaving this dunya for what they built. However, you have destroyed your akhirah. You didn't do anything for your afterlife. So you're afraid to leave all the castles you've built on earth because you know your akhirah is not built. Sa'd bin Mu'adh understood that equation. He said, O Prophet of Allah, take from our money whatever you wish and leave to us whatever you wish. If you want all of our money, take it, O Prophet of Allah. If you want 50% of it, take it. Take whatever you want, keep for us whatever you want. And wallahi, whatever you take is more beloved to us. So then the Prophet ﷺ, when he hears these words, he goes out with, as I said, approximately 300 men. And they went out with the goal of what? Of the caravan. Of getting to the caravan. Now, when they got closer to the caravan, Abu Sufyan, we said, who was leading the caravan of Quraysh? Abu Sufyan, one of the leaders of Quraysh. And we said this caravan was, it was a top priority for Quraysh. It wasn't, any normal caravan, business caravan. So this caravan was well secured. So Abu Sufyan had his intelligence people working for him. And they heard that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is coming with what? Is coming with 300 men to attack the caravan. And they only had 40 to 50 guards for the caravan. So Abu Sufyan, when he heard this, his intelligence people told him this. What did he do? He told one of the people that's on the caravan with him, his name is Damdam bin Amr al-Ghafari. This guy's name is Damdam. He told this guy to go to Quraysh and inform them, to tell them that Muhammad ﷺ is coming to attack your caravan to take all your money. And what Abu Sufyan did then is he changed the entire route of the caravan. He found out early that Prophet ﷺ was coming, so he changed the entire route and he sent for backup as well. So what happened is this guy Damdam, he went to Quraysh, he entered Mecca. However, when he entered Mecca, he did something that's very slick. Right before he entered Mecca, when he was on the outskirts of Mecca, he got up, he started ripping his clothes. He ripped the majority of his clothes, put patches in his clothes. He hopped on his horse and he rode it backwards. He basically, instead of riding the horse regularly, he put himself backwards on the horse. So he's facing the back of the horse, not the front. And then he tapped the horse to go inside Mecca. And then when he entered Mecca, imagine this scene, somebody riding a horse backwards. The horse is running and somebody's sitting on it backwards. And his clothes is all ripped and torn apart. And he's screaming, oh Quraysh, help, help, help. So then people start coming around him. What's wrong? And he kept going all the way to the Kaaba. The horse kept going all the way until it reached to the Kaaba. And that's when all Quraysh came and met at the Kaaba. The leaders of Quraysh came saying, what's wrong? What happened? He told them, Muhammad is after your caravan. Muhammad is going to steal all your money. So now the scene that Quraysh is seeing is what? They seen a man in front of them with his clothes cut up. They thought that already Muhammad ﷺ has already attacked the caravan. They were under the impression that the caravan has already gotten attacked, and that's why that's something that Damdam did in specific. He wanted them to think that that's it. The caravan has been attacked. That their money is gone. So Quraysh right away, what do? They prepare an army, and they prepare the strongest army they have. They prepare a very, very strong army of 1,000 men. 1,000 men. And Abu Sufyan, of course, told him that through his intelligence people, he told him that the Muslims' numbers are about 300, how many horses they had, what kind of weapons they had. He figured all this out. So this guy told the leaders of Quraysh that he's coming with an army of 300, etc. 1, 2, 3. So Quraysh actually one thing, Quraysh prepared an army of 1,300, not 1,000. They prepared an army of 1,300. They said, you know what? If they're 300, we're going out with 1,300 men to fight them. So then Quraysh prepares this army. They're on their way to the battle. As they get closer, Abu Sufyan, he merged away. He took a different route, and his caravan was safe now. It was far from Medina. It was safe. So Abu Sufyan sends another messenger to the army of Quraysh that's on its way already to tell them, you know what, we're safe. Your money is safe. It's with me. I avoided Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this messenger reaches the leaders of Quraysh, and he tells them Abu Sufyan is safe. He avoided Muhammad's sallallahu alaihi wasallam's army, and your money is safe. There's no need for war anymore. When this took place now, some of the leaders of Quraysh amongst themselves, they started arguing. Should we go to war? Should we not go to war? Utbah bin Rabi'ah, who's the father of Hind. Hind is the wife of Abu Sufyan. So Utbah bin Rabi'ah was one of the wisest men of Mecca. He was known to be a very wise, smart man. So he told them right away, he said, you know what? If the money is safe, let's go back. There's no need to fight. We came out for what purpose? To defend our money, right? We came out to get our money. So you know what? Our money is safe. Let's go back. There's no need to fight. The rest of the leaders of Quraysh, especially Abu Jahl, refused. He said, no. He said, we're out here. We prepared the army. We're ready to fight. This is our opportunity. Let's finish off Muhammad and all the Muslims. All the believers right now are with him. The Muhajirin and the Ansar are all with him. The warriors are with him. He has his army. This is the strongest army he could put at this time, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So let's go and finish him off. So some people started arguing, let's go. Utbah bin Rabi'ah kept trying to emphasize the entire time, there's no need to fight. And he even told them a statement that's very interesting. He said, خَلُّوا بَيْنَ مُحَمَّدٍ وَالْعَرَبِ. He said, leave room between Muhammad and the Arab. Let Muhammad do whatever he wants. He told them, if he's victorious amongst the Arab, that means if Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam defeats the rest of the Arab or convinces the rest of the Arab to join this religion of his, then he told them, then this will be your honor. Because Muhammad is from you, he's from Mecca. Then you could say, you know what, that he's from us, so it's an honor for Mecca. And then he said, if he's not able to convince the Arab, and the Arab defeat him, then that's it. There's no need for you to fight. The Arab took care of him. He said, leave room for him. And again, this is the point. Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam wanted room for the da'wah. Quraysh was preventing this da'wah. So when this dialogue took place, 300, some narrations say 300 of the soldiers that went out, went back. They said, you know what, there's no need to fight, because they come in clans and tribes. 300 went back, they said there's no need to fight. If our caravan is safe, our money is safe, we're safe about it. So the army that was left was what? 1,000 men. And it was a strong, strong army. And they took everything with them, all the kinds of weapons, all the kinds of horses, everything. They're prepared to go on all-out war. So they went to the battle, and now the Muslims, the news reaches Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, our beloved Prophet. It reaches the news to him that Abu Sufyan took a different route and his caravan is far away and he's safe. But now you have an army of 1,000 men under the leadership of who? Abu Jahl, coming to fight you. So now the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had to take a decision. Does he go back or does he continue? The narration that I mentioned in the beginning of asking the Ansar, some narrations say the Prophet ﷺ asked them before leaving Medina. The other narrations say no, the Prophet ﷺ asked them at this moment. Once they were not after the caravan anymore, the Prophet then asked, what do you say, should we fight or not? And that's when Sa'd bin Mu'adh gave him the reply that I mentioned. So the Muslims take the decision to go into the battle. And this is this battle is called Ma'arakat Badr, the Battle of Badr, Ma'arakat Badr al-Kubra. And it took place, by the way, yesterday in the Islamic calendar, on the 17th day of Ramadan. This battle took place on the 17th day of Ramadan, which is the day is what? Imagine the Muslims are fasting. You'll find, subhanAllah, the month of Ramadan, almost, I don't want to say every year, but a lot of Ramadans, you'll find very historic moments for the Muslim Ummah. Because subhanAllah, it's a month of barakah, it's a month of khair. So the Muslims decide to go into the battle. The Muslim army is going. The Prophet ﷺ finds a space, a big space for him to settle down in. And the Prophet ﷺ tells his army, you know what? Let's settle down here. This will be the place of the battle. So when the Prophet ﷺ settled down here, a Sahabi by the name of Habbab bin al-Mundhir. And subhanAllah, this Sahabi, Habbab bin al-Mundhir, you probably won't hear for him in the entire seerah of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ except this story. This is the only time he's mentioned in the seerah of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. This Sahabi, he comes up to the Prophet. And I want you to look at the way that subhanAllah the Sahaba dealt with the Prophet. First of all, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he's the Prophet of Allah, first and foremost. He's a Prophet, he's not a human being. He's not a normal, I'm saying, human being. He's a human being, but he's a Prophet of Allah. You're obligated to follow him and listen to him. And on top of that, he's the leader of Medina. In this case, he's the leader of the army, right? So, Habbab bin Mundhir, he goes up to him, he says, "Oh Prophet of Allah, I have a question." And I'm paraphrasing, of course. He said, "I have a question. This place that you chose, did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala command you to choose this place? Or is this a place you basically thought would be the best place for the battlefield?" Look at his question. And subhanAllah, this question has a lot of meanings behind it if we understood it correctly. He's asking him what? He's asking, "Oh Prophet of Allah, is this the place that you settled down in? Is this a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because if it's a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then that's it. I'm going to close my mouth and I will follow. I won't object to anything." It shows you how the Sahaba were raised. The Sahaba were raised with as soon as they know something is haram, that's it, it's haram. They don't, I don't know, maybe, yes, I know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran says not to do this, but no. If you really want to be a true believer, you need to train yourself to live that way. This is what Al-Habab is basically saying. He's saying, "Oh Prophet of Allah, is this place a place Allah commanded you to come in, to settle here? Or is it your choice, oh Prophet of Allah? You just guessed, and according to your strategy, you thought this is the best place." The Prophet ﷺ then replied to him saying, "No, this is my strategy. Allah didn't command me to settle down here. I chose. I thought it would be the best place." Then Habbab bin al-Mundhir told him, "Oh Prophet of Allah, I think we should go a little bit further. I don't think we should settle." He told him why. He said, because right ahead of them were the wells of Badr. The wells of Badr were basically wells for water. And back then, of course, the waters, they got them from wells. He said, "We're going to be going into a battle." He said, Habbab told the Prophet, "We're going into a battle. And these wells right in front of us," the Prophet ﷺ basically camped out behind the wells. So then when Quraysh would come, they would camp out on the other side of the wells. So the wells of water would basically be where? Between the Muslims and between Quraysh. So Habbab told him no. He said, "Let's camp out in front of the wells. So the wells are behind us. This way we could drink from the water and we could use the water and we could prevent Quraysh from getting to the water. And it's going to be a battle in the sun, in the hot day. Quraysh is going to really need water after a long trip all the way from Mecca to the area of Badr, which is closer to Medina. So it's going to be a long trip. It's right on the outskirts of Medina. So they'll be tired. We'll prevent them from the water and we'll have the advantage." Then the Prophet ﷺ, and look at this. SubhanAllah, this is the Prophet of Allah. First of all, again, he's a Prophet. He's the leader of Medina and he's the leader of the army. He says, "You're correct. You're correct. The strategy you put in place is correct." He didn't tell him, "You know what? No, I take a decision. That's it. I'm the leader. Nobody has a word except me." This is the Prophet of Allah. He told him, "You're correct." And then they went and they camped out in front of the battle, in front of the wells of Badr. And then they gathered all the water and they began to drink the water. Now the army of Quraysh came and the battle is getting ready to start. Quraysh lines up. The Prophet ﷺ lines up. And this time the Prophet ﷺ lines up the army in a unique way. That was the first time it was used. What the Prophet ﷺ did is he lined up the entire army, and again there were only 300 men, so it wasn't like there were thousands. He lined them all up, he broke them into two halves. Half archers, the archers stood, And then the ones with swords stood in front of them. So they were basically two lines, straight lines, all down. You know, you could say approximately, you could say 150 men, and then 150 men standing behind them. The first 150 men standing in the front are standing with their swords, and the men behind them are standing with their bows and arrows, and the Quraysh can't see that. And we'll figure out why in just a minute. So they stood up for the battlefield. Quraysh lined up. Before the battlefield began, something interesting happens. Before the battlefield began, Quraysh gets thirsty, right? Quraysh gets thirsty. And they want to drink some water. So they figure out that the water is what? Behind the Muslims. So one of the people of Quraysh, his name is Al-Aswad bin Abd al-Asad al-Makhzumi. Al-Aswad bin Abd al-Asad al-Makhzumi. He gets up and he says, you know what? He was known to be a warrior. He was known to be a very brave, strong man from Quraysh. He's one of the non-believers. He stands up and says, you know what? I take an oath right now. I swear that I will go and drink from the water of Badr. He's basically trying to what? Also lift up the spirits of Quraysh. Quraysh now at that point, they reached, imagine you just traveled by land, they're super thirsty. And now they figure out that the water is with the Muslims, their morals go down a little bit. You know, oh my God, this is going to be a long day if the Muslims have the water. So this guy, Al-Aswad, he was a warrior, he said he wanted to prove a point. He wanted to make a point that, you know what? I will go by myself and I will drink from the water. So he gets up, he takes his sword, and he goes through the Muslim army to get to by the water. As soon as he gets close to the well of Badr, who does he find right in front of his face? The lion of Islam, Hamza. Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib, the uncle of the Prophet. He finds Hamza right in front of his face. Hamza with one knockout, he finishes him off. He swipes his sword at him. He takes him down, and then the narration says that he actually crawled. Al-Aswad, he wasn't dead from the first blow. He crawled because he was insisting on drinking from the water to prove his point. He crawled, and then when Hamza saw this, then he went stood up in front of him, and then he finished him off completely. When this happened, the Muslims saying takbir, and this raised now the momentum for the Muslims. Now, this really raised the momentum of the Muslims, and now Quraysh is like, oh my, we need the water. You know what? It's going to be a bad day for us. So then the battle is getting ready to start. The first round, the Muslims won. You could say this is the first round of the battle. The Muslims took the momentum. Now Quraysh gets up and they say, and Quraysh, again I mentioned who? Utbah bin Rabi'ah, one of the leaders of Quraysh, didn't want to fight. He kept the entire time telling them, let's go back, let's go back. When they got to the battlefield, what happens now? The battle is about to begin. Abu Jahl, the entire time on the way to the battle, he's telling the rest of the Quraysh that what? Utbah bin Rabi'ah is a coward. He's telling them Utbah doesn't want to fight because he's a coward. He's trying to belittle what he's saying. Utbah makes sense. Saying, you know what? We got our money, we got our caravan, let's go back. There's no need for war. There's no need for the blood. Abu Jahl is going around, don't listen to Utbah. He's a coward. He's a chicken. He's afraid. He's afraid to fight. He's afraid that he might die because he's weak. So when the battlefield begins, the Muslims faced off. Abu Jahl asked, who wants to go fight one-on-one as a face-off? Who wants to fight one-on-one with the Muslims? Abu Jahl is asking, who's the first person to say, I will? Utbah bin Rabi'ah. Subhanallah. You can see sometimes how shaitan plays with the people. Utbah bin Rabi'ah, the entire time he's telling them, there's no need to fight. Let's go back. That's it. Abu Jahl kept saying, you're a coward, you're a coward, you're a coward. He wanted to prove himself. He said, I'll fight. So he came out and then he called out his son. He called out his son, and his name is Al-Walid bin Utbah, and he even called out his brother, Shaybah bin Rabi'ah. So imagine three people, Utbah bin Rabi'ah, his son, and Utbah's brother. Three people from the same family. They go in the front and they ask the Prophet ﷺ, O Prophet of Allah, or O Muslims, who will face us off? Who will face us off on a one-to-one? Basically, three on three before we begin. So who gets up from the Muslim side? Three young men from the Ansar. Subhanallah. Wallahi, this is beautiful. When I pause at this when I read this. Who steps up? Three young men, youth, in their 20s you could say. From who? From the Ansar. From the Ansar of the Prophet, from the people of Medina. Not from the people of Mecca. This shows how much the Ansar, how much love they had for the Prophet ﷺ and for this religion. They gave a pledge to the Prophet, and here they are, the first people to show this pledge. To put this pledge on the ground, they stood up, and they're ready to fight. So then when Utbah sees this, when he sees three young men that he doesn't even know, they're from the people of Medina, they tell Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, Oh Muhammad, we don't want to fight these three men. Bring us three men from our own family. Bring us three men from us. They want to fight who? Three from the Muhajirin. They're telling him, bring us three men from the people of Mecca, from the ones that left Mecca. So the Prophet ﷺ, who does he send out? He sends out 3 warriors or 3 lions. The first one is his uncle, Hamza bin Abi Talib. He tells Hamza to step up. The second one is who? Is his cousin, Ali bin Abi Talib. His cousin Ali. Ali steps up. And the third one is who? Ubayd bin Harith, who's also the cousin of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there's a message in this, subhanallah. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is teaching all the believers that before I sacrifice anything, I'm sacrificing my own family. Here's my family. I'm putting my family on the front line. I'm not asking all of you to go fight while me and my family are in the back. No, my family will be in the front line. My uncle, my cousin, who's like my son, who Ali bin Abi Talib was like a son to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam from how much he loved him. And of course, he later on married the daughter of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So he was his son-in-law as well. And my other cousin. He's telling the rest of the Muhajirin and the Ansar that I'm putting my family on the line because I believe in this message as well. Same thing with the Hijrah to Abyssinia. Who went on the Hijrah? Zainab. Zainab, the daughter of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He sent her with the Muhajirin to Abyssinia to show them what? That yes, I'm telling you to go to Abyssinia, but I'm also sending my daughter with you. You're not going alone. So these 3 men step up, radiallahu anhum, Hamza, Ali, and Ubayd bin Harith, and the battle takes place. They say Hamza, there's different narrations on who fought who, but one from Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal in Sahih Ahmad, he says Hamza fought Utbah, which was the wise man from Quraysh, and they said that he finished him off right away. You know, within 2 blows he was gone. It didn't even last a while. And then Ali, they say Ali fought Shayba, the brother of Utbah, and they said Ali killed Shayba second. And then between Ubayd and Al-Walid, they fought for a while until Al-Walid from Quraysh, he injured Utbah. He injured Utbah, and Walid injured Ubayd, the cousin of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then Ubayd as well injured him. So they both injured each other. Then Hamza and Ali went over and finished off Walid basically and killed him. And then they carried Ubayd, who was injured, and they took him back to the Muslim camp. And the second round of the Battle of Badr went with the Muslims victorious. Now the battle began. Quraysh, as soon as they saw 3 of their leaders die, they called for an attack. They went an all-out attack. Now this is where the plan of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam takes place. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had the first row, what? The first row of Muslims carrying their swords. As soon as Quraysh attacked, Hamza was, you could say, the on-the-ground general of the army. The Muslims with the swords, they went behind. The Quraysh saw people in front of them with swords. So they attacked, and they're running on their horses, of course, the majority of them. Then all of a sudden, as they got closer, the Muslims stayed in their place. As Quraysh got closer, the first row of believers with their swords, they went behind the ones with the arrows, and the ones with the arrows released the arrows. So they took down as much as they can from Quraysh just through the arrows before the battle began. Then the battle began, and it began intense, of course. The battle was very intense. And the first half of the battle, from how intense it was, they say that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the entire time raising his hand. He was raising his hand and making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was, and the way it's described, he was raising his hand like this, so high, and saying, "Oh Allah, if these people on earth die, nobody will worship you after this." Because these are all the Muslims that there are. All the Muslims on earth are right here in this battle. And this is the core group of Muslims. So you could even look at the vision for Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam wasn't worried about just winning the battle for the sake of winning or losing. No, he understood that this battle is a battle for the existence of Islam on earth. He's telling, "Oh Allah, if your believers die in this battle, or if they lose, then Islam, there will be nobody left on earth to worship you." He kept making dua until Abu Bakr describes from how high he had his hands raised and how hard he was making dua. His thob, the abaya on the Prophet ﷺ that he was putting on, it kept falling off, and Abu Bakr had to come to the Prophet ﷺ and tap him on his back and tell him, "Oh Prophet of Allah, Allah will be with you. Take it easy, O Prophet of Allah." Abu Bakr, imagine Abu Bakr had to come to the Prophet, tell him, "Prophet of Allah, take it easy. Allah will be with you. And Allah will support you." And the battle took place, and then halfway through the battle, the angels come down. Subhanallah. And look at the wisdom. Look at the wisdom behind this. We know that the battle of Badr, angels from the heavens came down, and they fought in the battle of Badr with the Muslims against the disbelievers. But when did the angels come down? They didn't come down from the start. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have sent the angels from the beginning of the battle to fight and destroy the disbelievers, but no. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested the believers. He put the believers fought, they began the battle. Halfway through the battle, once the believers, the Ansar and the Muhajirin, proved their sincerity and their dedication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came down. Allah will test and trial every single person. If from the beginning, as soon as you find a trial, if from the start you say, oh, that's it, no, khalas, I can't do it. If some of the Ansar from the beginning, you know what, we're 300, they're 1,000, we didn't know it was going to be like this, no, that's it, we're going to back off. No, they proved themselves, the angels came down, and of course we know the Muslims won that battle. It was a great victory for the Muslims. I believe the number of Muslims that died as shuhada in that battle, that were shuhada, actually we shouldn't even say they died, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran directly tells us, لا تقولوا. It's a command. Do not say for those who die in the battlefield that they're dead, rather say they're shuhada, they're martyrs in the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The number of Muslim martyrs in that battle, I believe, was 14. And they say one of them was from the Muhajirin and 13 were from the Ansar. To also show you what the Ansar, subhanAllah, how much they put for this religion. 14 Muslims, and of course the number of disbelievers was intense and a lot. And the battle finished with the Muslims being victorious in that battle. It was a great, great victory for Islam. Now this battle, and I'll finish with this, it had some very interesting moments. Very interesting moments about a few of the Sahabis. And again, I mentioned how Jannah was the goal. I'll discuss this inshallah tomorrow. I'll mention a few stories about instances that took place in the middle of the battle. We'll hear a story about one of the Sahaba who had to kill his own father. Imagine a Sahaba who had to kill his own father after he tried avoiding him so much, but then there was no way. His father kept attacking him. He had to kill his own father, but he did it for what? Because that's it. That was the only way to do it. But why don't you imagine what iman or what faith did these Sahaba radiallahu anhum have for one of them to be able to kill his own father for what? For the sake of Allah, because that's it. That's the only thing he had to do. His father was the one that forced him to kill him. He kept attacking him and he wanted to kill him. We'll talk about these stories tomorrow. We'll talk about how the Sahaba during this battle, they loved Jannah, subhanAllah. I said the theme of this was Jannah. Tomorrow we'll talk about a few stories about how the Prophet ﷺ put Jannah as the goal for the Sahaba during this battle, and how the Sahaba, and also tomorrow inshallah we'll start the battle of Uhud, the second great battle in Islamic history as well. So we'll talk about a few stories of Badr. We'll talk about the battle of Uhud as well tomorrow. And there's great lessons to learn from the battle of Uhud as well. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst those who are true to our words, who are true to our promises. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst those who sincerely believe in Him and worship Him and love Him. And ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He gathered us here today in this night, beautiful night of Ramadan, to gather us again with the Muhajirin and the Ansar and the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in al-Firdaus al-A'la. Subhanak Allahumma bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. A'udhu billahi minash shaitan rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.